Okay, so we left off on number 2. Tell whether the function shows growth or decay. Okay, so sketch a rough graph as well. So first of all, if I'm plugging in different things for my t-table, so if I plug in 1, and then I plug in 2, and then I plug in 3, what am I multiplying by each time? So do you guys remember when we did our M&M activity, we multiplied by 1/2? What's the number that I'm multiplying by each time? 3/4. This is our rate. So our rate is 3/4. So it's, if I plug in 1, I multiply by 1 of the 3/4. If I plug in 2, I do 2 3/4. Okay, so this is your rate. This is between 0 and 1. So when it's between 0 and 1, just like our M&Ms, when we multiplied by 1/2, we were getting half of what we had before. So we went from 100 M&Ms to 50, then to 25, then to like 13, somewhere around there. All right, so when it's between 0 and 1, it's going to be decay. Okay, so if we sketch a t-table, let's just plug in 0 and let's plug in 1. So if I plug in 0 into my function, I have 8 times 3/4 to the 0. So 3/4 to the 0 is 1, so I just get 8. And if I plug in 1, I have 8 times 3/4 to the first power, which is just 3/4. So the 8 and the 4 are going to reduce to 2, so you get 6, right? So your rough graph should look like 0, 8, and then 1, 6. So it's just going down like that. Okay, so for this one, is this going to be growth or decay? Growth, because this number here, 1.05, is greater than 1. What was that? Yeah, this is a 6. Yep. This is 8, and then this one's 6. So the smaller one's 6. All right, so if I do a little t-table for this one, if I plug in 0 for x, I have 10 times something to the 0 power, so 10 times 1, so it's 10. Then if I plug in 1, I get 10 times 1.05 to the first, so 10 times 1.05, it just moves the decimal place over once, so it's 10.5. So I'm going to have 10, so 0, 10, and then when I plug in 1, I'm going to have slightly bigger than that. So now you can see it goes up, it's growth. Okay, so that's why I wanted to do the rough graph, so you can kind of see what's happening.
So on our homework, we say this is just exactly what you're...
Yep. Just find 2 points. Okay, so we already did that one. You need to go back.
Yes, sorry.
You good? All right, so it says you can model growth or decay by a constant percent increase or decrease with the following formula. So growth, you have your amount after t years is equal to p times 1 plus r to the t. So p is the principal amount. That's your initial amount. R is your rate of increase or decrease, and t is the time. Okay, so let's think about it. So if I have, money in the bank, and let's say the bank's really nice and they're giving me 3% interest each month. So after the end of the month, if I had $100, I'd now have $103. Okay. So what this R means is it's your percent increase. So see how if you had 1 plus 0.03, that would be 103% in here. That's what's happening. You're thinking about the new percent that you have, 103%. But if I have decay, so let's say I have a population of bacteria, and this bacteria is dying off at a rate of 3%. Then, you don't have 100% of what you had after a day. Instead, you have 97%. Does that make sense? You lost 3% of the population. Yeah, so that's why you have 1 minus R in here. So see how that's 1 minus R there? So you'd have 0.97 in there. That's the only difference. They're exactly the same equation, just one is growth, one is decay. All right, so this one says Margaret invests $5,000 in an account that pays 6.25% interest per year. So our principal amount, P, is $5,000. My rate, we write it as we do in math, so 0.0625. And my time is 10 years. So I set up my formula. I say my amount after 10 years, I started with 5,000. I have 1 plus 0.0625 raised to the 10. So this isn't a times 10. A lot of people think they just write 10a. It's not a times 10. It's saying your amount after 10 years is this. It's a function like f of x. All right, so put this into your calculator. Be very careful. This is where people make the biggest errors. So what you need to do is do your parentheses first, raise it to the 10, and then multiply by 1,000. And each time you're just using the answer button on your calculator. Okay, so like first I did 1 plus 0.0625. So I got 1.0625. You can do that one in your head. And then you take that answer. So do you guys know how to get answer? You do second, and then it's the minus sign. Do you guys see that on your calculator? And you raise it to the 10th. And then you do answer, and you multiply by 5,000, or just hit times 5,000. It's second, and then the minus button. Okay, so when you do that, you get 9167.6, round to the nearest cent, so 68. So $9,167.68. It's pretty nice. Most of them are at 6.25% interest per year. Okay. But some wise investments are, you know, good stocks and stuff.
Okay, what is it again? You do 1 plus 0.065, and you raise that to the 10.
And then multiply by 5,000.
Or you could just do it like 0.065 plus 1, and then you get that answer, and then you raise that to the 10, and then you get that answer.
All right. So number 2, a city population which was initially 16,000. So P is 16,000, has been dropping at a rate of 3% per year. So my rate is 0.03. Write an exponential function and use the function to approximate what the population will be in 20 years. So T is 20. So whenever it says write an exponential function, that means leave T in it. So leave T in your equation. All right, so my amount after T years, I started with 16,000. I have 1 minus my rate, right? It's dropping. So 1 minus 0.03. In other words, I have 97% of what I had before, raised to the T. So my equation with T in it is amount after T years equals 16,000.97 to the T. That's your equation. Now, a lot of people think you can multiply the 16,000 by the 0.97 and write whatever number that is to the T, but you can't actually do that. Think about if you're plugging something in for T. If I plug in 2, I have to do 0.97 to the 2, and then I multiply, right? So you can't just multiply first. All right, so my amount after 20 years, I just plug in. So I have 16,000.97 to the 20. Okay, so go ahead and see if you get the same thing. So think about what order you need to multiply. So I got 8700.709. Okay. Oops. Okay, do you guys get that? All right, now think about what we're talking about. What are we talking about in this story problem? Not money like the last one, so I'm not going to round to 2 places. I'm talking about people. So am I going to leave that as your answer?
Yes.
No. So say 8701 people, or you could say 8,700 people. It doesn't matter. You can either chop it off or round up. So. All right, is that the last one for that section?
Yeah.
All right, so let me stop this one.